So, as you guys know from the last video, I just got his tag off, and now my little pony's name is Mr. Promise. He's actually not that small for a Mustang. He's kind of in the average height range, and he's still gaining weight. He's still got a long way to go. But today we're going to be introducing the halter. So the halter is the very first thing that I'd like to introduce to the horses before obviously I start leading them. And the first thing I do when I'm introducing the halter is I just let him look at it. I want to encourage him to be curious because he likes to ignore it, but right there you can see him really starting to come out of his shell. He wants to look at it. He wants to smell it and he wants to feel it, and that makes me really happy. Because as he gets less nervous, he starts to engage with me and engage with his environment and really start doing some fun things. The really cool thing about him is how quiet he is. So right here I'm able to jump right to sticking his nose in there, and he really doesn't think too much about it. He kind of leans back a little bit at times, but when I time my releases so that I'm only going right to where he's curious and I don't push him past where he's scared, then I'm able to really enhance that curiosity to the point where he wants to put his nose in the halter because he thinks it's interesting and I haven't forced it on him. So here I'm letting him smell the halter again, and I'm taking it nice and slow, putting it up his nose a little bit just so he can get a good look at it. Now you will notice that my Mustang did not come with a halter on. Sometimes when you go to pickups, they will allow you to put a halter on the horse. They actually do it for you. They'll put them in another chute, and they climb up above them and they'll kind of scoop their nose into the halter and fasten it. This allows you to attach a drag rope and the horse will kind of teach itself to lead. Now, this is a very effective and quick method of doing it. However, I have chosen, since my very first Mustang, to start the haltering process myself. I believe that this method is super helpful because it allows me to start influencing the horse's behavior before I ever get them on a lead. This increases the horse's comfort with me, and it also, I get that haltering out of the way because every horse needs to learn to be haltered. Whereas if I just was to shove the halter on his face and teach him to lead while he's already wearing it, he's not going to let me put it on maybe the second time or the third time. He's going to start running away and I'll only be able to catch him off of the halter and drag rope for a while. So even if I was to have him haltered before pickup, I would still end up having to teach him to halter a second time, except for he'd already have one on his face, so I'd just be putting another one over the top of it. And there's lots of different ways to teach things, and everyone does it differently, but this is my preferred method because I feel like it gives me a closer relationship with my horse, and I have to be a lot more in tuned to him. I have to really watch him and really be careful with my timing and my feel and my releases, and I really like that because it teaches me a lot. I increase my skills every time I do this. And the horse really just doesn't give me a chance to make a mistake because if I make it, he tells me. So here I'm placing the halter over his nose. I raise it up to that point where he's comfortable, and you can tell when he gets uncomfortable because he moves his head away. So I go in again, he kind of moves away slightly, but he's still engaged with me, he's still looking. Right here I reach a little further for his neck, and you can see that lean away he did right there, his ears kind of disengaged. But I released at the right time, so he actually remained curious and he came back to me. This time I push in too hard and he steps out. And after that he lost a little bit of confidence. You can see him start to lean away before I even stick his nose in, so I had to take a step back and start back just sticking his nose in the halter. So he's unsure. I kind of broke his trust right there when I grabbed his neck a couple minutes ago. So now I got to work back up to it. Right there he hesitates and he kind of engaged, but he didn't stay with me mentally. There he's accepting the halter again, but you can see he's a little less happy now. He's thinking about disengaging. He's a little shaken up. I kind of ignored that and went back for the working on his neck again. And here he's kind of frozen a little bit. So I'm still giving him pressures and releases. I'm using the traditional method of just rewarding the good behavior, which is when he stands still. And you can see I'm able to get that halter all the way up and around his neck. Good boy. I give him a release when he kind of thought about that. And there he comes back to me. He's curious again. He's starting to think. So there I gave him a big release because he was so good and he came back from that moment of uncertainty. And he came back and faced up and he wants to kind of engage again and play the game. So I just kind of offer my hand out to him. You can see him reach his nose out and lick his lips. He's relaxed, and so when he relaxes, I move back into his space bubble. He's got that little wiggle in his nostrils, little wiggle in his lips. He's relaxed now, but he's not reaching out. He is not the most curious horse in the world, but he is relaxed, which is good. So then I move back in to halter him again. I kind of touch his face, I rub him. I'm not just going to run up there and wrap my arms around his neck, but I go for his neck. I'm watching him for uncertainty. And I raise that halter up to his nose. When we start in a place where he's nice and relaxed, where I got him engaged again, that goes so smoothly. Here, I push it a little bit further. I go to tie the knot, and my hands stay up in a place he's not used to for longer, and he's not ready to handle that. So I let the halter go. I could have grabbed on and tried to keep him from moving, but this horse has not been trained to respond to halter pressure. So chances are he probably would have pulled back and ripped my arm off. Not really, but he would have definitely pulled back because he doesn't know how to respond to that pressure. So I just let it go, and we're going to try again. Chances are his confidence been shaken now. So I have to go back in there. You can see he's got that tension. I'm going to try to push through it, and he leaves. So he's such a sensitive horse that I'm going to have to go back in there. I get one touch of my hand. He sniffs the halter, and I back off. I let him know that it's okay. I'm not going to come and trap him. I want him to engage with me, and I want him to put his face in the halter. So then I reach around with my hands there. When he starts to move off, I respect that boundary, and I move back to it. So here I go again. I'm going to go for that spot he doesn't like, and you can see him lean away. I get a touch, and I release. He thinks about that. His head popped up, but he thought about it. That time he allows me in a little closer, but then he leaned away again at the last minute. So I release, I kind of rub it away. I'm letting him know that I see him, I see his discomfort, but we still got to do this. So I go in again. That time he stays still. I put the halter up around his nose, but he doesn't want me to tie that knot. So I just kind of push it through, and then I let him go. Because I pushed too hard that time. He wasn't ready for that, and I kind of ignored it because I wanted to just get that tied on there and walk away. Probably wasn't what I should have done there. I should have given him a release. There I do give him a release, kind of let him engage with my hand. And I'm still going after that knot. Him being nice and forgiving and soft, we started out in a pretty relaxed place. That didn't push him past the threshold, which was good. So after I got that halter on, I just left it there for a little while. And I went and I brushed him down, just encouraging him to stand still. When he acted uncomfortable, I let him know that I noticed it, and I released before he hit that threshold and took off on me. There he wants to kind of smell the brush. I'm letting him investigate as much as he wants. I don't want to knock the curiosity out of him because he's got a very fragile amount of curiosity left, and I don't want him to shut down completely. There he kind of opened back up, so I went in to brush again. And I'm just kind of petting on him, working my way back, because I haven't touched back past his shoulder yet, so I'm working my way back on his body, petting him all over. Here you can see I've made it a little bit further back his withers, and as I start brushing you can see really how thin he is. You can't really see it through his winter coat, but he's got a lot of weight to gain. So here he kind of blocks me. He says, hey, don't go any closer. He's trying to keep me out of that eye. So I'm just waiting till he opens back up, and then I'll go back in there again. Here he blocks me again, and then he opens up, and I go in for the brush. So I'm being aware of where his boundaries are, and by doing that I get a lot less of the spooking and taking off action. Right there he showed me he was uncomfortable moments before, and then he walks off. So right here he's sticking with me. He kind of showed me he was uncomfortable. I let him look at that brush, and this release right here allowed him to come towards me. There's something over there that I acknowledged because I knew it was going to bother him. So then after we did that for a little while, I took off the halter, and I always put it on one more time. We practice because it's still new to him. And then I'm going to go for his neck, and he's a little uncertain, but then he's like, okay, I remember this. Put my hands around his neck, there's a threshold there. but he sticks his nose right in the halter, and I let it go, and we end on that note.